And I think it's interesting how you mentioned at first you were trying to bridge a gap between athletes and corporations, but you found that athletes wanted to interact with each other more and kind of partner up with each other more. I thought that was very interesting because athletes are truly their own brand. And once an athlete can discover the power that they have, social media or building their own platform, it's amazing when I watch some of the athletes that I'm affiliated with post a video and just how many views they can get in 4 or 6 hours and how many likes and comments. So if you're willing to use your platform to promote yourself, especially in a positive manner, your words and your story is really needed.
100%. And you brought up a good point. I think the opportunity to have a community around being an athlete, right? And you know this just from your own sports experience, like nobody really knows unless you reach that point, what you and your teammates go through. And I think it's helpful to talk to athletes, not only in your sport, but in other sports, to say, oh my God, it's not just me. It's not just my team. It's not just my experience. Like other people have these challenges or experiences too. It could be good or bad. But just like that camaraderie of being a college or a professional athlete, being an Olympian, there's a lot of value you can find in just sharing stories with each other. And of course, I think the big thing we found is there's just so many people that want to help. Like you said, they want to share their story, not just to promote themselves, which is obviously very good and they should do that, but to help that next generation struggle less, to say, hey, you need to be thinking about what you're going to do after sports right now, while you're in high school, while you're in middle school, while you're a freshman in college, start doing this stuff, because that's what we found. A lot of people just want to share what they did and what they didn't do and what they wish they would have known, for that next generation to really learn from them.
So I think part of it too is from a community standpoint, just looking on, watching sports. Many of these athletes are glorified and you want them to be perfect, almost like a superhero. And you don't want them to be vulnerable in any type of way. Don't show any flaws, don't show any weakness. So being able to relate with each other, I think that's one of the most important things about building community for athletes, just like building community for many other things that you're doing, from entrepreneurship or investing. Being able to be surrounded by like-minded people is very powerful, especially when you're able to take down that shield and take off the armor and just be yourself and not have to be bravado or whatever it is to feel like you have to be that perfect individual. So,
yeah, no, 100%. And we've done workshops with, young athletes as young as 10, 11, 12, all the way to retired athletes that are, in their 30s, and sometimes older. And I think the big thing we see is amongst friends, it's so much easier to be open and to be vulnerable. It's not easy for every single individual. And of course, there's things that people are like, oh, I don't want to say, I don't want to talk, right? But once you get the conversation going and you have a couple brave people that start to share, the walls, the layers peel, and the walls come down and everybody starts to say, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I didn't even know I needed to talk about this, but I needed
right.
to talk about it. Right. So it's conversation, and the stuff that you and I do when we do these interviews and these conversations, just doing them more and more, telling stories and sharing. It's really, it's not a solution in itself, but it's a part of a big solution of how can we solve problems. It's by talking to each other and sharing and being vulnerable. So we have a long way to go, but I think it's a really good start and a positive start that, we're seeing a lot more conversations with athletes being vulnerable and saying I'm struggling or saying I need help.
So this is your chance to kind of brag on Tackle What's Next. What do you feel has been your greatest accomplishment working with athletes, or what problem do you feel like you helped solve?
Oh my goodness. So I would hope that we have helped people find community in this solution, or in this challenge of, what am I going to do? How do I kind of move on from my sport? But I would say our biggest accomplishment so far has just been bringing people together. I think I've just been so blown away by the support we've gotten. I think that the relationships we've been able to build and the collaboration we've been able to achieve with other organizations in the same space and people doing similar work. I would say that's my biggest achievement, because none of this happens without a select few people 3 years ago saying, I like what Danielle's doing, and I'm going to reach out to this person for her. I'm going to make this introduction. So, those people know who they are. And I think, there's many that are doing incredible, amazing things now in the same space. And, I think that to me is a huge accomplishment that I was able to be in their space and support them. And so I think, the goal of Tackle What's Next is, and eventually we don't need to be here. This is happening in campuses and on teams all over the country without us hosting these conversations. They're just happening and everyone feels comfortable talking about this. So, that's a long-term goal. But I think, what we try to do is just talk about it. Let's just open the door. A lot more is going to have to happen. You need to have resources. You need to have all kinds of things set up for that conversation to really make a difference, but it's a first step. And that's what we're really trying to be, is a first step for athletes looking for resources and community, and a first step for teams, organizations, and support staff looking for that. How do I get people to the table? How do I get people to take advantage of my resources I'm offering? So that's our goal. And I would say, we can't do it by ourselves. Nobody's perfect, and including me. So it's taken a lot of helping hands to get where we are now.